Morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for a discussion of China. We've got the wonderful privilege of going first in the conference today, which is always good. We get everyone bright and early and after their first coffee, which is always a good sign. So today we're talking about China. Just to give you a little bit of background, I'm Jonathan Travers-Smith. I'm the founder and CEO of Hotpot China. I have been working in or with China for the last 20 years, and I'm a Mandarin speaker. And as a business, we are a strategic marketing agency that helps global brands to succeed with Chinese consumers, both in mainland China as well as the disparate and far-reaching Chinese communities around the world, so London, UK, Europe, North America and Australia. There are huge communities there, and part of the work that we do is helping brands to reach those audiences, as well as obviously growing brands within mainland China. And we've done that for both large groups, so very lucky enough to have worked with the likes of Estée Lauder, Unilever, La Mer, and some really big names. But also increasingly there are opportunities in China for niche brands and smaller brands that really have something to offer to Chinese consumers. So that includes the likes of Sarah Chapman, Child's Farm, which is a child-based personal care brand, and then other key players growing from the UK like Neom. All have opportunities within the market, and that's kind of our key focus for them. Also with me today is Yihu, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Hello everyone, my name's Yihu. I grew up in China. I came to the UK back in 2017, so a long time ago. And I've been working in China related marketing for the past 5 years. I've been helping international brands to grow in China, including the Hut Group, Christopher Robin, Elon Musk. Yeah.
So today we're going to look at 5 key trends. Now obviously trying to get through China in 20 minutes, it's a big topic and it's a little bit challenging. So we've kept it to kind of 5 key points that we hope are good takeaways for yourselves. Obviously we'd love to continue the conversation, so after we've spoken, please do come and find us. We'll be both here and we also at stand 22 throughout the day, so do come and find us after that. But we're going to look at 5 key trends. To kick off though, I'd like to look at the size of the opportunity. So it won't surprise you to learn that China is vast. As a cosmetics industry, total market value in 21 was 49 billion, so it makes it the second biggest cosmetics market in the world, but also the fastest growing of any market globally. So yes, you have 1.4 billion consumers. Around that, obviously there are tiers of consumers that are looking for the best of international brands. And what are they looking for? To summarize very briefly, looking at authenticity of brand and of provenance. We're looking at innovation, so brands that really bring something new to the table to stand out in the marketplace, and looking for exclusivity. So today's modern Chinese consumer is looking for a brand that they have discovered, that they have learnt about, and that may be different to what their peers are using, so that they have that story to talk about and talk through. Lastly, just looking at some of the stats, really interesting function of China is its huge e-commerce landscape. So every year there is both Singles Day in November that's coming up, but also this year 618, which happens in June. It's a big e-commerce festival run by one of the leading platforms, JD.com. And I thought a really interesting stat from that was the fact that 65% of the gross market value that's done on that day is done in pre-sales. So there's such hunger from consumers to access these brands and to actually get their hands on these brands that 65% of their purchases are done before that day actually happens, putting the goods into the basket and ready to click go the moment that the festival starts. So it's a slightly different characteristic to what you would find in the West, but it shows you the hunger and the appetite for global brands if you can actually get your marketing and your messaging right for the marketplace. So I promise I'm not going to just kind of send stats your way. We actually wanted to look at some real life examples, and we thought we'd do that through some case studies so you can see what's actually happening within the China market. So our first point to look at is around product market fit. And obviously this, for China, may be something different to what you might be used to in your home market. So Yihu is going to talk through SESDERMA.
So the first brand I'm going to talk about is SESDERMA. SESDERMA is like a Spanish national treasure, but when it first entered China back in 2017, it had no presence in the Chinese market, facing fierce competition with a lot of big names and a lot of newcomers into Chinese market. Initially, tried to push its bestseller in the West, which is called depigmenting serum in China, but no one really responded to it. However, quickly the opportunity came. One of the Chinese celebrity, Fan Bingbing, posted a random picture as picture 1 show in her skincare routine, where you can spot a SESDERMA body milk. Is not a vastly popular product even here in Spain or in Europe. However, the brand quickly responded to it by allocating all the resources to this particular SKU. It hired loads of influencers from very lower tier key opinion consumers to higher tier the key influencers to talk about this SKU particularly. Soon, a lot of people start to talk about this brand and this SKU. And they also partner with other European pharmaceutical beauty brands to do a European pharmaceutical beauty week via Tmall Global. Soonly, it established their presence in the Chinese market. And it's a fast-growing European pharmaceutical brand in China market right now.
So this is something we see across the clients that we work with, is actually your product market fit for China may not be what you think it is, or certainly it may not be the same as you would find in your global markets. So what smart brands are doing is that they are really working on understanding the target consumer, and there'll be very many different segments of target consumer in China based on age, based on income, based on regional locality, and really digging into those markets, running focus groups and understanding your target market is really critical before taking a step into the China marketplace. A lot of brands will go in within the assumption that their hero product from the UK or US will do as well in China, but actually there's a whole set of considerations around texture, around a functionality of the products, and often around fragrance that may be vastly different. And so it's really important to know that before allocating your marketing spend and pushing fully into the market. The other thing that Yihu touched on there is that China is often a hero product market, so you may have a huge wealth of range across your product range, but actually often that hero product is the one that gets known. They often get given nicknames, as has been the case with Charlotte Tilbury that had their red bean paste lipsticks, exactly the same color as red bean paste, a popular dessert in China. Once you have that nickname and once you're talked about with consumers, it's often that product that drives your brand growth. So there's really a kind of land and expand approach to the market once you have the hero product established. Second area we wanted to look at was the critical role of brand ambassadors.
Here you can see the picture. We have three gorgeous, youthful-looking men. And what do they have in common? Apart from incredibly good-looking skin, is they are all very young men. And that's what we have a unique concept in China. In Chinese, we call them 小鲜肉. So a literal English translation would be little fresh meat, used to describe youthful-looking men. And brands, especially beauty brands in China, are getting increasingly favorable with all these new male ambassador. They are men ambassador used in beauty world just to target female audience. And you can see here, Fresh has been the brand ambassador Fresh chosen has getting increasingly younger and younger, and they work incredibly well in Fresh's favor. Usually after they announce their brand ambassador, their sales on all platforms just skyrocketed right after.
Obviously, it can go both ways. So if you get it right with your brand ambassador, then you have a immediate route to mass awareness and positive associations, because some of these celebrities, be they from K-pop bands or be they kind of up-and-coming actors, have a huge digital reach on channels such as Weibo and Little Red Book, which we're going to come on to. Now, obviously, that's great if you get it right. Any celebrity can fall from grace, and there are some very kind of public versions of this that we've seen over the last 10 years, where a brand has kind of pinned all of their hopes on a single ambassador or celebrity. And then obviously if there is a public scandal or something that happens with that celebrity, immediately your brand equity, because it's tied to that individual, declines overnight. So what we advocate for, and when we're working with brands on their influencer strategy, is by all means have your key brand ambassador, but it needs to be supported by a kind of pyramid of influencers. So key opinion leaders at the top who have mass reach, but also working from the bottom up with grassroots influencers. So actually, a key trend there is around KOCs, key opinion consumers. They may not have millions of followers, but they may have a few thousand, and they're very influential in their peer groups. So actually working with many hundreds of those can actually be a lot more effective to establish your brand, drive word of mouth, which we will come on to, and ultimately drive sales, than working with that single brand ambassador. So again, it needs to be a tailored approach, and you need to know your target market in order to pick the right ambassador. Next of all, we're looking at digital excellence, and actually we could run a whole webinar or a whole kind of week of webinars on the differences of China's digital ecosystem. However, one of the things we wanted to pick out was WeChat in particular as a platform, and again, we're looking at Fresh here as an example of digital excellence.
So before I get into Fresh's digital game in China, I want to take a minute and tell you guys what is WeChat. WeChat is firstly and also primarily a messaging app, and later it developed other function and all combined one together. You can chat to people on it, you can share content, you can discover new content, and ultimately you can shop on WeChat as well. So it's everything combined in one app. So what Fresh did last year in Chinese New Year is particularly significant. A lot of brands have been invested heavily in Chinese New Year, and Fresh has been very clever about it. So WeChat have this special function called WeChat Moment, is where you can share your daily life, like daily content, like Instagram, to your friends, and only your friends can see that. So Fresh invested heavily on WeChat ads, where you go post on your content. Then soon you see this as they posted here, and they invite you to shake your phone and open the Chinese New Year red envelope. So the Chinese New Year red envelope is something you give to your relatives, your friends on Chinese New Year Day, and they know that culture pretty well, and they invite you to open the red envelope. Just from Fresh. Once you shake your phone and open your red envelope, it came up with all these serious emojis featuring your favorite brand ambassador. So the Xiao Xianrou, the little red meat, have different emoji. Because it's a chatting app, so you will be using all these emojis throughout the year. And that's the gift from Fresh. And ultimately, they take you to Fresh's mini program on WeChat. What is that? It's just like e-commerce shopping platform. So in there, you finish the purchase journey.
So WeChat as a platform is entirely comprehensive. As I said, you don't necessarily need to leave WeChat. You can receive your messaging there. You can engage with brand ambassadors there. You can receive a gift, as in this case with the red envelope, from the brand. And you can also see product and check out directly within WeChat. So a lot of our clients, when we first start working with them for China, say, well, where is my Facebook equivalent, or what's WeChat like? And we have to disappoint them in that there really is nothing like this in the Western world. And so brands really need to be planning for those marketplaces and for the apps directly when thinking about design, about packaging, and about how to launch a product. And actually within that, it's worth looking at Perfect Diary as a homegrown Chinese brand. So they're owned by Yasun Corporation, who own a number of kind of sea beauty brands or Chinese beauty brands. Perfect Diary have really taken WeChat to the next level. So WeChat, in its messaging function, you can have groups, so like a WhatsApp group. I'm on many just to try and facilitate logistics with my kids. But actually within China, it's a place where you would use this to receive information, receive content. So there are WeChat groups for football, there are WeChat groups for beauty. And what Perfect Diary have done is taken these groups of maximum 500 people and created tens of thousands of them. And so they are digitally curating these groups. You feel like you're having a one-to-one conversation with the curator, who is called Abby. She has a name. There's one Abby in every group. And she is asking you for your preferences. You are in real-time conversation with 500 people in this group, and you're actually giving feedback to the brand directly. So they've been able to leverage the power of WeChat to have group messaging, to push products into those groups, get real-time feedback saying this is too oily for my skin or the price is too expensive, and they have an incredibly fast new product development route to then take that back and then bring the right products to market. And this is why they have grown exponentially over the last 5 years, and it is a great example of a Chinese brand knowing the landscape, knowing the digital platforms, and just leveraging it to really the best effect possible. So key takeaways there are really just understanding that the environment is different, working with WeChat as a key part of your communication strategy. If you get it right, it's a very powerful CRM tool, and you're able to kind of get real-time feedback from consumers. And at the same time, looking at using that data for new product development and feeding it into the funnel so that you can be more targeted towards the needs of Chinese consumers. Penultimately, we're looking at word of mouth, which is an incredibly strong trait in China and very powerful if you get it right.
So we all understand the significance of word of mouth. However, it plays a little bit different in the China market. And it has a special app called Little Red Book. It is almost like e-commerce content sharing platform, but it's also a little bit different. It's like a Wikipedia to everything. You can find anything from beauty, fashion, lifestyle to anything on Little Red Book. It's young Chinese millennials' holy grail. You can find almost everything on it, and it has different function once you register. The app will recommend you content based on your interest, and you can explore everything. Once you know what you want to know a little bit, delve a little bit deeper, you can go to the search bar and search, and if you see anything interests you, you can click on the profile and have a look what they posted before, and eventually if the brand itself has a shop on it, you can even buy stuff on it. It's very easy. And here I want to take example to show you how Little Red Book really impacted Chinese consumers' buying journey. So you know the brand Guerlain, and a couple years ago, no one in China has heard of the concept overnight recovery. And this is a concept single-handedly brought to prominence by people just talking about it on Little Red Book. Again, the Chinese celebrity Fan Bingbing posted a picture of her skincare routine with Guerlain's overnight recovery thing on her Little Red Book. And soon people start to talk about it. And nowadays, if you search overnight recovery on any Chinese platform, not only on Little Red Book, but also on e-commerce platform like JD or Tmall, Guerlain products will come right after and will always occupy top 5 position. So almost like if you search anything on so what really works like is Chinese consumer, before they buy anything, they go on Little Red Book and they search about it, they learn about it before they make the decision whether they want to buy or not. And the same goes for the Christoph Robin's sea salt scrub. The concept was very little known before Little Red Book talk about it. So now afterwards, if you search anything about sea salt scrub on any Chinese e-commerce platform, it will come up on Christoph Robin. That's how powerful the platform has been, yeah.
And you can see there the combination of two things, that the power of word of mouth and then getting the product market fit right. Word of mouth really is a cultural trait that's very strong in China. So even before digital platforms, recommendations from friends and peers carry a huge amount of weight there. And then platforms like Little Red Book simply kind of facilitate that in the digital era. What a lot of brands get wrong in this is saying they hear Little Red Book and they say we must be on there, and they put a lot of marketing spend behind kind of creating beautiful content on that platform. That's fine if you have the budget to do it, but what consumers are actually looking for is not what the brand is saying, it's what other consumers are saying. And so actually we do a lot of work working with KOCs and grassroots influencers to get product into hand, to find people that have a genuine affinity for that product, and then really work on that UGC, the user-generated content. Because when I search, it's great to hear from Guerlain, but actually if I hear from 1,000 consumers that love this product and are very vocal about it, so much more powerful than a nicely branded advert that essentially goes out on the platform. So again, we work with brands to sort of rethink the strategy and say, let's go consumer first and make sure that on Little Red Book you're getting that critical mass of awareness and also positive sentiment. By the way, actually, when we, if you find us over the course of the next 2 days, if you work for a brand or if there's a particular area of the cosmetics industry you're interested in, we can pull up Little Red Book, we'll do a little search on there, and pretty much straight away you get a very quick snapshot of what's happening with your product and your brand. So come and find us, we'll do that search for you, and we'll see what comes up. Lastly, looking at the role of offline. So obviously we've spoken a lot about the power of digital platforms, that's great, but we cannot neglect the role of offline.
So the brand I'm talking about today is a home British brand, ELEMIS, and how they enter China is very different from other brands' approach. Firstly, they opened up a flagship store in Nanjing, one of China's big metropolitan city, and they really invest heavily into this store. They have everything from beauty devices, beauty consultants on site, and spa skincare. And they really just bring that luxurious spa skincare concept in life. And then afterwards, they chose to partner with Sephora. So they launch and sell their products through Sephora. And therefore, they foster some certain trust with Chinese audience. The last step they do is finally go on Chinese e-commerce and Tmall Global. It's very different from how other brands operate in China. And they succeeded in China.
So there is a real desire for consumers to see, to touch, and to experience products, and obviously that's very hard to generate in an e-commerce environment or e-commerce only environment. So actually smart brands are tying together the online approach and the offline approach. Actually, pre-pandemic was in Shanghai, Parks and Mall there, Kiehl's had actually set up a sample dispensing machine, so it looked like a regular kind of vending machine, where you would go and scan a QR code with your phone, and it would ultimately put you into the CRM, but then dispense you a small kind of sample of a particular skincare. Now, it's an example of how you don't need to open up in kind of 3,000 locations worldwide. You can simply have a presence, and consumers want to actually get their hands on the product. And obviously those that have experienced the product are high value consumers to you as well. So actually building an element of offline into your strategy is really critical. And some brands even go offline first through distribution partners and JVs. There's a wealth of considerations as to the right route to do that. And it's something that Adam from our commercial team kind of helps brands with on a regular basis to get that mix right. The other thing to mention is that cross-border is a majorly prestigious route. What does that mean? A lot of brands are fulfilling orders to China from overseas. So actually platforms like JD Worldwide, Tmall Global, they are huge e-commerce platforms in China, but they are actually focused on cross-border deliveries. So either having bonded warehouses just outside of the Chinese borders, or actually fulfilling a customer's order from overseas. The platforms that connect that e-commerce journey, and a lot of brands will do that as a first route into market. For a consumer, that can be relatively negative because they have to wait 5 or 10 days even to get their hands on the product, but that's far outweighed by the prestige of shopping from overseas for this consumer. So actually there are interesting and more lightweight routes to market that are worth exploring for brands. So that was a bit of a sort of flyby. As I said, difficult to cover a topic like China in a short period of time. Key takeaways there, really, if I can summarize. One, you must know your consumer, and there may be some preferences there that aren't what you think. So really getting deep into that consumer and understanding what it is they care about and their key preferences are really critical. With those insights, then planning a suitable approach and building a strategy that's designed to be flexible and build in the ever-changing landscape that China has is really crucial. And then thirdly, building the right digital ecosystem, both for social, for digital marketing, and for e-commerce, and bringing in elements of offline is really crucial. So again, our role as a business is to partner with people on that, and so really, we've built our offerings around meeting those needs. So creating insights, we have a cultural intel community, which is 5,000 Chinese beauty consumers based all across China, and we go to them regularly for our own marketing purposes, but also to run ongoing focus groups with brands around new products, around marketing messaging, and around kind of routes to market. So that's something we have on tap. We also help brands with what we call the China blueprint, so getting that planned roadmap right from the outset and avoiding some of the pitfalls that other brands have done. And then running Chinese social media. So we have teams in London and Shanghai to run that across the board. And lastly, as I said, in terms of routes to market, we have a range of partners that we work with in order to deliver on e-commerce and physical retail within the marketplace. So no, that was a brief flyby. As I said, we're at stand 22 if you want to come and find us. We're also around for some Q&A now. And actually we have some cards with us that with a QR code that will take you to a China-focused beauty white paper that we produced earlier in the year. So if you're interested in that, I can give you one of those now. It just gives you the top line of how to approach the market for your brands. Thanks very much for your time, and thank you, Iho.
Thank you.